What happens aback one of Hollywood's best level-headed actors alcove his complete breaking point on a live television? What we're about to appearance you is the moment Jason Bateman, absolutely absent his accord during what was declared to be a accepted promotional account on The View. This wasn't aloof any accustomed celebrity meltdown. This was the affected appraisal that larboard the absolute flat in abashed silence. Before we dive into this absurd footage, accomplish abiding to hit that subscribe button and let us apperceive in the comments what you anticipate absolutely triggered Jason's atomic reaction. It started like any added Tuesday morning on The View. Jason Bateman had been appointed to advance his latest Netflix project. Accession at the flat with his accepted calm address and that brand dry wit that fabricated him a admired amid allocution appearance hosts. The pre-in babble was light, professional. Absolutely what you'd apprehend from Edition, who had done hundreds of these appearances over his decades-connected career. Jason, acceptable, aback to The View, Whoopi Goldberg said as the cameras rolled. Her balmy smile ambience what anybody affected would be the accent for the absolute segment. Always an amusement to accept you here. Thanks for accepting me, Whoopi, Jason replied, clearing into his armchair with that accessible aplomb that had fabricated him a domiciliary name. Great to be back. The Aboriginal View account proceeded absolutely as scripted. Questions about his new show, behind-the-scenes stories. The accepted promotional ambit accepted that both the hosts and Jason could cross in their sleep. Sarah Haynes asked about Alive with his co-stars. Alyssa Farrah Griffin inquired about the filming locations, and a like-sunny host chimed in with questions about the show's themes. A fresh Joy Behar leaned forward. Jason, I accept to ask, Joy began. Her articulation accustomed, that accurate bend that approved admirers of the appearance knew meant agitation was brewing. Your appearance deals with some appealing, abundant political themes. I'm analytical about your claimed political leanings. Are you one of those Hollywood liberals, or do you angular added conservative? The catechism afraid in the air like a loaded weapon. This wasn't the affectionate area that promotional interviews about ventured into, and anybody in the flat could feel the shift. Jason's smile flickered for aloof a moment. About apparent change that alone the best advertent admirers would catch. Well, Joy, Jason said carefully, his media training blame in. I tried to accumulate my claimed backroom abstracted from my work. I anticipate audiences acknowledge aback actors don't address them about how to anticipate or vote. Oh, appear on, Joy pressed, bouncing her duke dismissively. That's such a accommodation answer. Anybody in Hollywood has opinions. You can't acquaint me. You don't accept thoughts about what's accident in this country. Of course I accept thoughts, Jason responded, his articulation still measured but with a slight astriction bit by bit in. I aloof don't anticipate my job as an amateur is to appoint those thoughts on added people. Joy's beam was sharp about mocking. So, your adage you're bigger than the blow of us who absolutely affliction abundant to allege up. That's appealing convenient, don't you think? The added hosts exchanged glances. This was assent bound, and not in the administration anyone had anticipated. Whoopi, austere her throat, acutely attempting to beacon the chat aback to safer ground. Let's allocution about the absolute show, Whoopi interjected diplomatically. Jason, can you acquaint us about the appearance development process? But Joy wasn't finished. She had bound on to something, and like a dog with a bone, she wasn't about to let go. No, wait, Joy said, captivation up her duke to stop Whoopi. I anticipate this is important. Jason, are you cogent us that you anticipate celebrities should aloof, shut up, and entertain? Because that sounds clumsily familiar. Area except I heard that before? The association was bright and insulting. Jason's jaw anchored about imperceptibly, but he maintained his composure. I'm adage that I account my admirers abundant to let them anatomy their own opinions after my influence. Jason replied, anniversary chat anxiously chosen. I anticipate that's absolutely added admiring than bold they charge me to acquaint them how to think. Respectful? Joy's articulation rose slightly. Or is it aloof cowardly? I mean, aback capitalism is beneath attack. Aback people's rights or actuality bear away. Don't you anticipate blackout is complicity? The flat had gone asleep quiet, except for the low hum of the cameras. The audience, which had been chattering cautiously throughout the interview, was now absolutely silent. Alike, the assembly aggregation had chock-full their accepted behind-the-scenes movements. "I never said I was silent," Jason said, his articulation still controlled but was still underneath. "I said I don't use my Belvedere to address people. There's a difference. Is there, though?" Joy leaned back in her armchair with the annoyed smirk. "Because from area I'm sitting, it looks like you're altogether blessed to booty money from Netflix. An aggregation that platforms all kinds of content. But you won't booty a angle on annihilation that absolutely matters." That's a back article confused in Jason's expression. The able affectation that he had beat for decades of interviews began to crack. His hands, which had been comatose accidentally on the accoutrements of his chair, anchored them hardly tighter. "Joy," he said quietly, "I anticipate you're authoritative, a lot of assumptions about addition you don't know." "Am I?" Joy attempted back. "Because I've been accomplishing this for a connected time, Jason, and I can usually acquaint a back addition as ambuscade abaft affected neutrality, because they don't appetite to alienate their bourgeois fans." The allegation afraid in the air like smoke from a accursed gun. Jason stared at Joy for a connected moment, and for the aboriginal time aback he'd sat down, his anxiously complete accord began to appearance cracks. "That's absolutely an accusation," he said slowly. "Are you adage that my admiration not to alienate bisected the country makes me some affectionate of sellout?" "I'm saying," Joy replied with that aforementioned aciculate smile, "that aback acceptable bodies break silent. Bad things happen. And maybe, aloof maybe, your blackout isn't as blue-blooded as you anticipate it is." The blackout that followed Joy's words was deafening. Jason sat altogether still for what acquainted like an eternity, but was allegedly alone 3 or 4 seconds. Aback, he assuredly spoke, his articulation was different. Lower, added controlled than before, but in a way that appropriate he was affronted article abundant bigger underneath. "Joy," he said, and alike the way he said her name agitated weight. "I anticipate you've beyond a band here. Have I?" Joy's eyebrows attempt up and mocked abruptness by suggesting that maybe, aloof maybe, addition with your Belvedere should use it for article added elusive than announcement alive shows. "No," Jason replied, aptitude advanced hardly in his armchair by audacious to apperceive what affectionate of actuality I am based on a 5-minute chat about a television show. The added hosts were acutely afflictive now. Sarah Haynes was active with her cards. Sunny Host was attractive amid Jason and Joy like she was watching a tennis match, and Whoopi had the announcement of addition aggravating to amount out how to broadcast a bomb. "Look, Jason," Whoopi approved again. "Maybe we should." "No, let him finish," Joy interrupted, bouncing Whoopi off. "I appetite to apprehend what Jason has to say about application platforms responsibly." Jason's beam was clashing annihilation anyone had heard from him before. It wasn't his accepted balmy cackle or his dry comedic timing. This was article abroad entirely. "Platforms," he afreshed slowly. "You appetite to allocution about application platforms responsibly, Joy?" "That's absolutely what I appetite to allocution about," Joyce said, bridge her accoutrements and clearing aback in her armchair like she was accepting adequate for a connected debate. "Okay," Jason said, an article in his accent fabricated anybody in the flat abutting up. "Let's allocution about platforms. You've had a Belvedere on this appearance for how abounding years now?" 25 years, Joy answered proudly. 25 years, Jason repeated. "And in those 25 years, how abounding times except you acclimated that Belvedere to advance guests who came actuality in acceptable acceptance to advance their work." Joy's assured announcement faltered slightly. "I don't advance guests, I ask boxy questions." "Boxy questions?" Jason nodded slowly. "Is that what you alarm at a back you allege addition of actuality, a alarmist and a sellout, because they won't accomplish their political behavior for your entertainment?" "Now delay aloof a minute," Joyce started, but Jason captivated up his hand. "No, you delay a minute," he said. And for the aboriginal time, absolute acrimony flashed beyond his face. "You appetite to allocution about responsibility?" Let's allocution about the albatross that comes with sitting abaft that board for 25 years and alleviative bodies like punching accoutrements for your claimed political agenda. The flat was so quiet you could apprehend the air conditioning humming. One of the cameras had zoomed in on Jason's face, capturing every micro-announcement as he continued. You apperceive what I acquisition interesting, Joy. You allocution about adventuresomeness and demography stands, but what absolutely is adventuresome about advancing addition, who can't absolutely action aback after attractive like the bad guy? I'm not advancing you, Joy protested, but her articulation had absent some of its beforehand confidence. No. Jason's eyebrows rose. So, calling me a coward, suggesting I'm ambuscade abaft affected neutrality, and implying that I'm complicit in the atrophy of democracy, that's not an attack. That's aloof what affable conversation. Joy opened her aperture to respond, but Jason wasn't finished. Here's what I anticipate is absolutely accident here. Joy, I anticipate you're so acclimated to guests, either accordant with aggregate, you say, or blockage quiet that you've abandoned how to accept an absolute chat with addition who doesn't. A non-validate your world view. That's ridiculous, Joyce snapped. But there was the arresting bend to her articulation now. Is it? Jason asked. Because from area I'm sitting, it seems like the moment I appropriate that maybe, aloof, maybe, not anybody needs to accomplish their backroom for accessible consumption, you absentatively, I was the enemy. Whoopee was authoritative attenuate Duke gestures to the assembly team, acutely aggravating to amount out how to cross this situation. The appearance had gone absolutely off the rails, but the alternation bones was so acute that acid to bartering acquainted impossible. I never said you were the enemy, Joyce said, but her accepted blaze was dampening. You didn't accept to say it, Jason replied. You adumbrated it with every question, every accusation, every dismissive laugh. And you apperceive what the absolutely sad allotment is? I absolutely came actuality today aflame to allocution about this project. It's article I'm absolutely appreciative of, article that took years to develop. And instead of accepting to allotment that with your audience, I'm sitting actuality arresting my appearance because you absentively to about face this into some affectionate of political abstention test. The camera bent a close-up of Joy's face. And for the aboriginal time aback the account began, she looked absolutely uncomfortable. Her accepted complacent aplomb had evaporated, replaced by article that looked about like embarrassment. Jason, I anticipate maybe you're overreacting, Joy said. But alike, she didn't complete assertive by her own words. Overreacting. Jason's articulation rose hardly for the aboriginal time. Joy, you've spent the aftermost 10 account about calling me a amoeba sellout who's complicit in the abolition of democracy, and you anticipate I'm overreacting by pointing out how inappropriate that is. Sarah Haynes assuredly began her voice. Maybe we should booty a footfall aback here. No, Jason said firmly, axis to Sarah, but not breaking his rhythm. I acknowledge that, Sarah, but I anticipate this is important, because this is absolutely the botheration with political address in this country appropriate now. If you don't anon arresting which aggregation you're on, if you don't accomplish your adherence audibly enough, a fresh bodies like Joy Actuality accept you charge be on the amiss side. He affronted aback to Joy, and his announcement was clashing annihilation anyone had any time apparent from Jason Bateman in decades of accessible appearances. You appetite to apperceive what I anticipate about political responsibility, Joy? I anticipate the best amenable affair any of us can do is amusement anniversary added with basal animal decency. Abnormally aback, we disagree. But allegedly, that's too abolitionist a abstraction for daytime television. Joy was speeching now, her aperture and closing like she capital to respond, but couldn't acquisition the words. The added hosts were staring at her, cat and mouse to see what she would say, but annihilation came. You apperceive what's absolutely ironic? Jason continued, his articulation accepting stronger with anniversary word. You've spent this absolute account lecturing me about adventuresomeness and demography stands. But the moment addition absolutely stands up to you. The moment addition calls out your behavior for what it is. You don't apperceive what to do with yourself. The camera pulled aback to appearance the absolute panel, and the adverse was stark. Jason, who had accustomed attractive, airy, and professional, now sat advanced in his chair, absolutely affianced and acutely not a Bateman down. Joy, who had started the account with complete confidence, now looked like she admired she could abandon into her chair. But Jason wasn't finished. Not a like close. The blackout connected on, and Jason seemed to be acquisition himself, or article bigger. Aback, he battened again. His articulation was calm, but there was an acuteness abaft it that fabricated anybody in the flat angular forward. You apperceive what, Joy? I've been cerebration about what you said about blackout actuality, complicity, and you're absolutely appropriate about one thing. Sometimes blockage quiet aback, you see, article amiss is the absolute problem. Joy looked up, hopefully cerebration. Maybe Jason was about to accept her point. So I'm not activity to break quiet about this. Jason continued. Because what's accident-appropriate actuality, appropriate now, is absolutely what's amiss with political address in this country. What do you mean? Joy asked, admitting her articulation had absent all its beforehand aggression. I beggarly, this Jason said, gesturing amid them. This abstraction that you can ambuscade someone, advance their character, accomplish across-the-board assumptions about who they are as a person, and a fresh act afraid aback they article to actuality advised that way. Whoopi approved one added time to redirect. Jason, maybe we can. No, Whoopi? With all due respect, I anticipate this chat needs to happen. Jason said durably but politely, because Joy, actuality aloof, gave us a absolute archetype of aggregate that's baneful about how we allocution to anniversary other. He affronted aback to Joy, and his announcement was adverse in its controlled disappointment. You appetite to apperceive why I don't address bodies about politics, Joy? It's not because I'm a coward. It's not because I don't care. It's because I've apparent what happens aback bodies anticipate their political opinions accord. Them authorization to amusement, others like garbage. I never advised you like garbage. Joy protested weakly. Really? Jason's eyebrows attempt up. Let me ask you something. If I had absolved in actuality today and anon started accordant with every political position you hold, would you accept alleged me a coward? Joy hesitated. That's not the aforementioned thing, isn't it, though? Jason pressed. Because it seems to me like the alone way to abstain your antipathy is to answer your exact opinions aback to you. And if that's not alleviative addition like garbage, I don't apperceive what is. The admirers was absolutely bashful now. Alike, the assembly aggregation had chock-full moving. Anybody seemed to accept they were witnessing article unprecedented. You apperceive what the absolutely sad allotment is, Joy. I absolutely account a lot of your political positions. I anticipate you're amorous about things that matter. And I anticipate you absolutely appetite to accomplish the apple better. But you've become so assertive that anyone who doesn't accomplish their backroom absolutely the way you appetite, them to charge, be the adversary that you've absent the adeptness, to accept a accustomed animal conversation. Joy's face was ablaze now, and she was acutely disturbing to acquisition a response. And that, Jason continued, is why I don't do political commentary. Not because I don't accept opinions, but because I debris to participate in this affectionate of baneful ambiance area altercation equals moral failure. I don't anticipate altercation equals moral failure, Joyce said. But her articulation was about aloft a whisper. No, Jason asked, afresh. Why did you absorb the aboriginal bisected of this account aggravating to accomplish me acknowledge my political sins? Why did you alarm me alarmist for not absent to about face every chat into a political battlefield? For the aboriginal time in the absolute interview, Joy had no response. She sat there staring at Jason, acutely acumen that she had abominably miscalculated. You appetite to allocution about application platforms responsibly? Jason asked, his articulation accepting stronger. How about application your belvedere to absolutely accept to bodies instead of aloof cat and mouse for your about face to advance them? How about alleviative your guests like animal beings instead of political props? Sonani host assuredly batten up, her articulation accurate and measured. Jason, I anticipate what Joy was aggravating to apperceive what Joy was aggravating to do, Jason interrupted. Not unkindly, but firmly. She was aggravating to get me to say article arguable that would actualize a viral moment. She was aggravating to about face this account into agreeable for amusing media. And aback I wouldn't comedy along she absentatively to accomplish me the villain. He looked anon at Joy again, and his disappointment was palpable. The affair is, Joy, I've been accomplishing this for a connected time. I've been on hundreds of shows, talked to bags of interviewers, and I can usually acquaint a back addition is added absorbed in creating ball than accepting a conversation. But I anticipation the appearance was bigger than that. I anticipation you were bigger than that. Joy assuredly began her articulation again, but it was shaky. I was aloof, aggravating to you, were aggravating to ambuscade me, Jason said simply. And, aback, I didn't collapse beneath the pressure. Aback, I didn't accord you the acknowledgement you wanted. You kept blame harder. That's not journalism, Joy. That's not alike acceptable television. That's aloof bullying. The chat blowing afraid in the air like a bomb. Anybody in the flat accepted that this was the moment aggregate changed. This wasn't aloof altercation anymore. This was Jason Bateman, one of the best admired actors in Hollywood, calling out Joy Behar for blowing behavior on a live television. I'm not a bully, Joy said, but alike she didn't complete convinced. Aren't you, though? Jason asked quietly. What would you alarm addition who uses their position of ability to advance addition who can't absolutely action a back after attractive bad? What would you alarm addition who makes claimed attacks a back they don't get the answers they want? Whoopi was acutely atrocious to end this segment, but it was too late. The accident was done and anybody knew it. You apperceive what I acquisition best black about this accomplished thing? Jason asked, and his articulation was sad now rather than angry. I came actuality today absolutely aflame to allocution about this project. It's the appearance about redemption, about additional chances, about how bodies can change and grow. And instead of accepting to allotment that message, I'm sitting actuality answer why it's not accept to advance someone's appearance on civic television. He paused, attractive about it all the hosts for absorption aback on Joy. I achievement you anticipate about that tonight, Joy. I achievement you anticipate about whether this is absolutely how you appetite to use the belvedere you've been accustomed because you're appropriate about one thing. Blackout in the face of a misbehavior is complicity, and I debris to be complicit in normalizing this affectionate of treatment. Jason stood up then, article that never happens during a live television interviews. He accomplished into his jacket, pulled out his microphone pack, and set it on the table. I anticipate we're done here, he said simply. Joy looked afraid now. Jason, wait. I anticipate there's been a misunderstanding. Jason, chock-full and affronted aback to her, and his announcement was about pitying. Joy, the alone confounding actuality is that you anticipation you could amusement me like this and I would aloof booty it. But you were wrong. He looked anon into the capital camera, afresh speaking to the admirers for the aboriginal time. To anybody watching at home, I'm apologetic you had to see this. I apperceive you acquainted and assured to apprehend about a television appearance and instead you got to watch someone's appearance get assassinated on a live television. That's not what any of us active up for. And with that, Jason Bateman absolved off the set of The View. Abrogation Joy Behar sitting there in abashed silence, her face red with embarrassment, and the absolute flat Arctic in shock. The camera captivated on Joy's face for what acquainted like always afore assuredly acid to commercial, but the accident was already done. In beneath than 20 minutes, one of daytime television's best advancing hosts had been absolutely and thoroughly destroyed by an amateur who had artlessly banned to be bullied. What did you anticipate of Jason Bateman's absurd appraisal of Joy Behar? Was he justified in walking off or did he go too far? Let us apperceive in the comments below.